December of '83, I was standing in my barn feeding horses when I heard something that had no business being out there. A baby crying in a blizzard 20 below zero. Through the snow, I saw her, little slip of a thing dragging herself through drifts that came up to her waist, carrying a bundle wrapped in blue cloth. She fell 3 times before she reached my fence, and every time she got back up, protecting that baby like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. When I brought him inside, that girl looked up at me with one good eye, the other one all scarred over, and she whispered 6 words I'll never forget. "Can you take him instead of me?" Right then, I knew 2 things for certain. First, somebody had hurt these children bad enough they'd rather die in a storm than stay put. And second, by dawn, I'd either be their salvation or we'd all 3 be dead, because the man who came looking for him wasn't the forgiven type. I'd been a widower for 5 years by then, living alone on my ranch up in the Montana foothills. Folks in Frost Creek said I'd gone hard after Martha and my boy James died, said I was cold as the iron I used to shoe my horses. Maybe they were right. I hadn't smiled in half a decade, hadn't spoken more than 10 words to anyone unless it was about business. That night, the blizzard had been raging for 2 solid days. Wind howling like all the devils of hell had been let loose, snow piling up so high you couldn't see the fence posts. I was in the barn tending to the horses when I heard it. That sound that didn't belong. A baby crying. At first I thought I was hearing things. Nearest neighbor was 10 miles off, and nobody in their right mind would be out in weather like this. But there it was again, faint but getting closer. I grabbed my rifle and stepped out into the whiteout. That's when I saw her. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, wearing clothes that were little better than rags, dragging herself through snowdrifts that came up to her waist. She was carrying a bundle wrapped in blue cloth, and I could see the bundle move and hear the baby inside it crying. Every few steps she'd fall, disappear into the snow completely, then struggle back up and keep coming. I watched her fall the 3rd time and thought she wouldn't get up, but she did. Got to her knees, clutched that baby to her chest, and kept crawling toward my fence. By the time I reached her, she'd collapsed against the fence post. Her lips were blue, fingers frozen to the cloth she was holding. The baby had gone quiet. Never a good sign in cold like that. I didn't ask questions, just scooped them both up and carried them inside. The heat from my fireplace hit her like a slap. She gasped, started shaking so hard, I thought she might break apart. I laid her on the hearthrug, unwrapped the baby from her arms. Little boy, maybe 6 months old. His lips had that same blue tinge, and his breathing was shallow and wet. Pneumonia. I'd heard that sound before, in my own son's chest, the night he died. "The baby," the girl whispered, teeth chattering so hard she could barely speak. Is he alive?" "Barely," I said, rubbing the little one's chest, trying to get his blood moving. "What in God's name are you doing out in a blizzard?" She didn't answer right away, just lay there shaking, watching me with one good eye. The other eye was damaged, scarred over, half closed. Somebody had hurt this child, and not accidentally. I got some warm milk heat and wrapped the baby in blankets, held him close to the fire. The girl just watched, not saying a word, not asking for nothing for herself. "You got a name?" I asked. "Eliza Morrison, sir." Her voice was a hoarse whisper, like she wasn't used to speaking much. "And that's Samuel. He's my brother." "Where's your folks, Eliza Morrison?" "Dead, sir. Mama died having Samuel. Papa died before that. Logging accident." I knew the name Morrison. James Morrison had run the biggest logging operation in 3 counties before he died last spring. Brake failure on his wagon, went over a cliff, left behind a widow and, "You're James Morrison's kids," I said. She nodded. "Then who's taking care of you?" Her one good eye got real wide, and I saw something in it I recognized. Pure animal fear. "Our Uncle Oswin, sir. He's our guardian now." "So why ain't you with him?" That's when she said it. 6 words that stopped my heart cold. "Can you take him instead of me?" I stared at her. "What?" "Samuel, sir. Can you take Samuel? You don't have to keep me. Her voice cracked. "I'm damaged goods. One eye don't work right, and I ain't strong like other girls. But Samuel, he's perfect." He just needs milk and warmth and somebody to care for him. Please, sir, you don't have to take me, just him." I opened my mouth to answer, but that's when I heard it. Heavy pounding on my door. Aggressive. Demanding. A man's voice cut through the howling wind. "Brennan! I know they're in there! Open this door!" I recognized that voice. Oswin Fletcher, local businessman, owned half the loans in town, and apparently the legal guardian of two children who'd just run 10 miles through a blizzard to get away from him. Eliza's whole body went rigid. Her breathing stopped. The baby in my arms started crying again. "Brennan!" Oswin pounded harder. "Those children are my wards by law. Send them out, or I'm coming in." I looked down at that little girl, shaken with more than cold now. Looked at the baby in my arms, still blue-lipped and struggling to breathe. Then I looked at my rifle, leaning against the wall by the door. In that moment, I had to decide. Open that door and hand him over, or cross a line I couldn't uncross. I picked up my rifle and walked to the door. I didn't open that door. Not right away. "Storm's too dangerous, Fletcher," I called out, keeping my voice steady. "These children are staying here tonight." "The law says they're mine, Brennan." "The law can wait till the snow stops." There was silence on the other side of that door, the kind of silence that means a man's calculating his next move. Then I heard him spit in the snow. "You're making a mistake," Oswin said, his voice dropping low and mean. "I'll be back with Marshal Reeves come first light. And when I do, you'll answer for this." I listened to his horse ride off into the storm, then set my rifle back against the wall. When I turned around, Eliza was staring at me with that one good eye, tears streaming down her face. "You shouldn't have done that, sir," she whispered. "Uncle Oswin, he don't forget." "He don't forgive." "Neither do I," said. "Now let's get you two warmed up proper." The first thing I did was tend to the baby. Samuel was in bad shape. That wet, rattling cough that meant fluid in the lungs. I'd heard it before, in my own boy, known what it meant then, knew what it meant now. I heated milk to just the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Funny how your hands remember things even when your heart's been trying to forget. Eliza watched me do it, and I saw something shift in her face. "You've done this before," she said quietly. "Had a son once." That's all I said. Didn't elaborate. Couldn't. She didn't ask more questions. Just nodded, like she understood what it meant when a man spoke in past tense about his children. I got Samuel to take some milk, wrapped him tight in blankets, kept him close to the fire. The whole time, Eliza sat there soaked through and shivering, not asking for a single thing for herself. "Girl, you need to get out of those wet clothes before you catch your death," I said. "Samuel first, sir." "Samuel's being taken care of. Now you." I found some of Martha's old clothes in a trunk I hadn't opened in 5 years. Simple dress, too big for the child, but dry and warm. I handed it to her and turned my back while she changed. When I looked again, she was drowning in that dress, sleeves hanging past her hands, hem dragging on the floor. But she stood there with her chin up, trying to look dignified despite it all. Reminded me of Martha, that same stubborn pride, even when the world was kicking her down. "You hungry?" I asked. "If you got something to spare, sir, I wouldn't refuse it." I made stew, venison, potatoes, carrots from my root cellar. Simple frontier food, but hot and filling. When I set the bowl in front of her, she looked at it like I'd given her a king's feast. Then she did something that told me everything I needed to know about this child. She broke her bread in half and tucked one piece in her pocket before eating the other. "What are you saving that for?" I asked. "Tomorrow, sir, in case there ain't more." My chest went tight. "There'll be more, Eliza. You don't need to hoard food here." She looked at me with them big eyes, one clear, one clouded, and I could see she didn't quite believe me. This was a child who'd learned not to trust promises. After she ate, I set her up in the small bedroom I used to use for storage. It had been my son's room, once upon a time. Still had his little bed in it, covered in dust. I cleaned it off quick as I could, tried not to look at the toy horse still sitting on the shelf. "You and Samuel can sleep here," I said. "Where will you sleep, sir?" "By the fire. Someone needs to keep it going through the night, keep the house warm for the baby." I can do that, sir. I'm used to staying awake. The way she said it, flat, matter of fact, made me wonder what kind of nights this child had endured. You sleep, I said. That's an order. For the first time since I'd found her, she almost smiled. You give orders like Papa used to. Your Papa was a good man from what I heard. He was. Her voice got real quiet. Uncle Oswin said so at the funeral. Said what a tragedy it was, losing such a good man. Said he'd take care of us, make sure we didn't want for nothing. But, she looked down at her hands. But Uncle Oswin lies real good, sir. Real good. I sat by that fire all night, tending it, listening to Samuel's labored breathing from the next room. Every hour or so, I'd check on him, make sure his color wasn't getting worse. Around 3 in the morning, I heard Eliza get up. She came out carrying Samuel, walking real careful in the too big dress. His breathing's worse, she whispered. I think he needs medicine. Real medicine. She was right. The baby's lips were turning blue again, and that rattle in his chest had gotten deeper. The nearest doctor was in Frost Creek, 20 miles down the mountain, through a blizzard that hadn't let up one bit. I'll ride to town, I said, already reaching for my coat. You can't. The storm will kill you. Then it kills me. I was pulling on my boots. But I ain't watching another child die for lack of trying. Sir, Mr. Brennan, her voice broke. Why? Why would you risk yourself for us? You don't even know us. I stopped, one boot on, one boot off, and looked at that little girl holding her dying brother. Because somebody should have done it for mine, I said. Then I walked out into the storm. By the time I got back, 3 hours later, half frozen, medicine in my saddlebag, the sun was starting to rise. I stumbled through my door to find Eliza sitting by the fire with Samuel, both of them wrapped in blankets, and she'd kept that fire burning the whole time I was gone. You came back, she whispered, like she hadn't really believed I would. I gave Samuel the medicine, watched his breathing start to ease. Eliza finally let herself cry then. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears rolling down her cheeks. That's when we heard the horses. Multiple riders coming up the mountain trail. Through the window, I could see 'em. 6 horses, maybe 7. Oswin Fletcher in the lead, and right beside him, wearing a marshal's badge, was Tom Reeves. Eliza grabbed my arm. He brought the law. I see that. What are we gonna do? I looked at her scared face, at the baby finally breathing easier, at the life I'd built alone in this cabin for 5 years. Then I picked up my rifle again. We're gonna find out, I said, just how much the law cares about doing what's right versus doing what's legal. The pounding on my door started again, harder this time. Silas Brennan? Marshal Reeves's voice. Open this door. I got papers here says you're harboring minors against their legal guardian's wishes. Open up or I'll break it down. Eliza's hand tightened on my arm, and I made my choice. I opened that door. Marshal Reeves stood there in his heavy coat, snow crusted in his beard, looking tired and cold and not particularly happy about being dragged up a mountain in a blizzard. Behind him, Oswin Fletcher sat his horse with the kind of smug satisfaction that makes a man's trigger finger itch. Marshal, I said, keeping my tone level. Oswin. Mr. Brennan. Reeves pulled out a folded paper from inside his coat. I got guardianship documents here signed by Judge Morrison himself. States that Oswin Fletcher is legal guardian to Eliza and Samuel Morrison, orphaned minors. Now I understand you took 'em in during the storm. That's charitable of you. But Mr. Fletcher here says they ran away and he's been worried sick looking for 'em. I looked past the marshal at Oswin. His eyes were cold, calculating. Worried sick, my ass. That baby was dying of pneumonia when they got here, I said. Still might be if I hadn't rode to town for medicine in the middle of the night. That sound like children running away for no reason? Children run away all the time, Oswin said smoothly. They're ungrateful creatures by nature. I've fed them, clothed them, housed them for 6 months, and this is how they repay me, dragging a sick infant through a blizzard and bringing shame on my household. Shame on your household, I repeated slowly. That what you're worried about? Shame? Among other things. Oswin's smile didn't reach his eyes. Now, Marshal, If you'd be so kind as to retrieve my wards, I'd like to get them home before they cause any more trouble. Marshal Reeves looked at me. Mr. Brennan, I'm going to need you to bring those children out. Can't do that, Marshal. Can't or won't? Both. Reeves sighed. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The law's clear. Man's got legal papers. Children are his wards. You got no legal standing here. I got 2 children inside who are terrified of that man, I said, jerking my chin toward Oswin. That ought to count for something. Children are often afraid of necessary discipline, Oswin said. It doesn't make the discipline wrong. That word, discipline, the way he said it, with that little smile playing at his lips, made me want to put my fist through his teeth. Let me talk to the girl, Marshal Reeves said. Just talk. That's reasonable, ain't it? I hesitated, then stepped aside. The marshal came in, snow fallen off his coat. Oswin tried to follow, but I blocked the door. Marshal comes in, I said. You stay out. Those are my children. They're wards, not property. And until the marshal says different, they're under my roof, which means I decide who enters. Oswin's face went red, but he stayed put. He knew if he pushed it, he'd have to go through me, and despite all his bluster, he wasn't that kind of brave. Inside, Eliza was standing by the fire, holding Samuel tight. When she saw Marshal Reeves, she went pale. Now, Miss Eliza, Reeves said gently. Your uncle says you ran away. That true? She nodded, just barely. Why'd you do that? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at me. I could see her mind working trying to figure out what was safe to say. Go on, I said quietly. Tell him the truth. Uncle Oswin. Her voice was so small. Uncle Oswin was going to put us on the orphan train, 200 miles east. In this weather. Samuel's sick, and I told him the baby wouldn't survive the trip, but he said it didn't matter, said we were too expensive to keep. Marshal Reeves frowned. Mr. Fletcher, that true? You planning to send him east? Oswin had pushed his way to the doorway, not quite inside, but close enough to hear. I'm making arrangements for their proper placement. There are institutions better equipped to handle orphaned children than a bachelor living alone. It's for their own good. Their own good, I said, or your wallet's good. How dare you? Their father owned shares in your logging business, didn't he? I was guessing, but the way Oswin's face twitched told me I'd hit close to home. Children inherit those shares. Must be inconvenient, having 2 mouths to feed when you could have the whole pie to yourself. That's slander. It's a question. I looked at Marshal Reeves. Might be worth asking who benefits from these children disappearing to some orphanage 200 miles away where nobody'd ever check on them. The marshal looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Mr. Brennan, you're making serious accusations without proof. Then ask her about the eye. I pointed at Eliza. Ask her how she got that injury. Eliza's hand flew to her scarred eye, and I saw pure terror flash across her face. She looked at Oswin, and I watched her whole body start to shake. I fell, she whispered. I fell down the stairs. But the way she said it, flat, practiced, like she'd said it 100 times before, made it clear as day she was lying. Eliza, I said gently, tell him the truth. I can't. Tears were streaming down her face now. I can't. You see, Marshal, Oswin said. The child's been coached. Mr. Brennan has filled her head with lies and— He pushed me! Eliza's voice cracked like a whip. Uncle Oswin pushed me. I dropped a plate and he got angry, and he pushed me into the doorframe and my eye. She was sobbing now, the words pouring out like a dam had burst. And Papa's accident wasn't no accident. I saw Uncle Oswin that night, the night before Papa died. I saw him at the equipment shed, cutting the brake cables, filing them down so they'd look worn. And next day, Papa's wagon went over the cliff and— Enough, Oswin roared. The child is hysterical. She's making up stories because she's been poisoned against me. Marshal, I demand you remove these children from this man's influence immediately. The whole room went silent except for Eliza's sobbing. Marshal Reeves looked at her, then at Oswin, then at me. I could see him weighing it all. Legal papers versus a child's accusation, law versus what was right. Mr. Fletcher, he said slowly, these are serious allegations. From an 8-year-old child who's clearly been traumatized and manipulated. Nevertheless, Reeves pulled his hat off, ran a hand through his hair. I think, I think we need to bring this before Judge Morrison. Let him sort it out proper. That could take weeks, Oswin protested. Then it takes weeks. The marshal's voice had gone hard. In the meantime, the children stay put. Mr. Brennan, you're officially appointed temporary guardian until we can get this sorted. Mr. Fletcher, if you got objections, you can file them with the judge when he makes his circuit next month. Next month? Oswin's face had gone purple. This is outrageous. I have legal rights. And that girl just accused you of murder. Marshal Reeves fixed him with a stare. Now, I ain't saying she's telling the truth, but I ain't saying she's lying either. And until we know which it is, those children ain't going nowhere. Oswin looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. Not anger, not frustration, calculation, like he was already figuring his next move. This isn't over, Brennan, he said quietly. Not by a long shot. I reckon it ain't, I agreed. He turned and mounted his horse, yanked the reins hard enough to make the animal's head snap back. You'll regret this, Marshal, both of you. I have friends. Influence. You can't keep me from what's legally mine. We'll see about that, Reeves said. We watched him ride away, Oswin and his righteousness disappearing into the snow. When they were gone, the marshal turned to me. You know what you just did? He asked. Made an enemy. Made a powerful enemy. Oswin Fletcher owns half the loans in this territory. He can make life real difficult for folks who cross him. Then I reckon my life's about to get difficult. Reeves shook his head. You're either the bravest man I know or the biggest fool. Probably both, I admitted. He looked at Eliza, still crying by the fire, holding her baby brother. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I hope you're right about him. Because if that girl's telling the truth about what she saw, we got a murderer walking free in Frost Creek. Then I guess we better prove it, I said. After the marshal left, I sat down by the fire next to Eliza. She was rocking Samuel, humming some tune I didn't recognize. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I told. He said if I ever told anyone he'd... She couldn't finish. You did the right thing, I said. Taking the first step's always the hardest. But what if nobody believes me? I'm just a kid with one eye. He's important. He's rich. He's scared, I interrupted. Did you see his face when you said what you saw? That ain't the face of an innocent man, Eliza. That's the face of a man who knows his secret's out. She looked at me with that one clear eye. Do you believe me? About what I saw? I thought about the way Oswin had reacted, the calculation in his eyes, the threat in his voice. Yeah, I said. I believe you. For the first time since I'd found her in that blizzard, she smiled. Small, fragile, but real. Thank you, she whispered. Outside, the storm was finally starting to break. Through the window, I could see patches of sky showing through the clouds. The worst had passed, but I had a feeling that when it came to Oswin Fletcher, the worst was just getting started. For 3 days, we lived like a real family. I taught Eliza how to gather eggs from the chickens without spooking them, how to knead bread dough till it had just the right spring to it. She was a quick learner, watched everything I did with that one good eye, remembered it all. And she was gentle with Samuel, always putting his needs before her own. Reminded me of Martha in that way. Samuel's pneumonia was getting better, his color came back, his breathing eased. He even started laughing, this little baby giggle that filled up the empty spaces in my cabin like nothing had in 5 years. I told myself maybe we'd gotten lucky. Maybe Oswin would give up, wait for the judge, accept whatever decision came down. Maybe we'd actually have time to build a case, gather witnesses, prove what that man had done. I should have known better. The first sign came on the 3rd night. My dogs started barking around midnight. Not their usual bark at a coyote or deer, but something different. Anxious. Warning. I went to the window and looked out at the moonlit snow. Didn't see nothing but the dogs wouldn't settle. Kept pacing and whining till near dawn. What's got 'em spooked? Eliza asked, coming out with Samuel in her arms. She'd taken to sleeping in the chair by the fire instead of the bedroom. Said she liked being close to the warmth. "I don't know," I said. "Probably just a bear coming out of hibernation early." But I didn't believe that. And from the look on her face, neither did she. The next morning, I rode down to check my fence line, found fresh tracks, boot prints, at least 4 different men circling my property. They'd come right up to the edge of my land, stopped, then headed back toward town, scouting, counting exits, planning something. When I got back to the cabin, Beatrice Hollis was there. She'd ridden up from town with a basket of supplies, flour, sugar, salt pork, but the look on her face told me she hadn't come just to be neighborly. "Silas," she said, pulling me aside while Eliza was occupied with Samuel. "You need to know what's happening in town." "I'm listening." "Oswin's been talking, spreading stories. Says you're an unmarried man living alone with a young girl, that it ain't proper, that who knows what kind of influences you're exposing her to." My jaw clenched. He's suggesting. He's suggesting all kinds of things, and people are listening, Silas. He's called in loans, threatened businesses, reminded folks who holds their mortgages. He's turning the whole town against you. Let him turn. I don't care what they think. You should care. Beatrice's voice dropped low. Because last night at the saloon, he was buying drinks for some rough types. Men from out of territory. The kind you hire when you want something done that can't be traced back to you. I felt something cold settle in my gut. How many men? 4 that I saw, maybe more. Armed? To the teeth. We stood there in silence for a moment, both knowing what that meant. Oswin had tried the legal way and failed. Now he was going to try another way. "You could take the children and leave," Beatrice said quietly. "Head west, change your name, start over somewhere he can't find you." "Run, you mean? Survive, I mean." I looked through the window at Eliza, watching her make faces at Samuel to get him to smile. She'd started to relax these past few days, started to believe she might actually be safe here. "I built this ranch with my own hands," I said. "Every fence post, every board in that barn, it's all I got left of the life I had with Martha. I ain't running." "Then you better be ready to fight." "I'm always ready to fight." Beatrice put her hand on my arm. "Silas, there's brave, and then there's foolish. You're one man. He's got money, influence, and hired guns. You can't win this." "Maybe not, but I can make damn sure he don't win either." She shook her head sadly, then climbed back on her horse. Before she rode off, she turned back. "There's some of us in town who know what Oswin really is," she said. "Not many, but some. If you need help, I'll send word." But we both knew how that would go. Oswin owned this town, owned these people. When push came to shove, they'd look the other way. That's what folks do when they're scared. They survive. Can't blame 'em for it, but can't count on 'em neither. That night, the temperature dropped hard. The kind of cold that makes your breath freeze in your lungs, makes the trees crack like rifle shots. I was sitting by the fire cleaning my guns when I heard it. Horses, multiple horses, moving slow and deliberate up the mountain trail. I went to the window and looked out. At first, I couldn't see nothing but darkness and stars. Then I saw 'em. Lights flickering through the trees, torches. At least 6 of 'em, maybe more, winding their way up toward my ranch. "Eliza," I said quietly, "take Samuel and go to the root cellar." She was on her feet in an instant, baby clutched to her chest. "What's happening?" "Just do what I say. Get in that cellar, close the door, and don't come out till I tell you it's safe. Mr. Brennan, now, girl!" She ran. I heard the cellar door creak open, heard her footsteps on the wooden stairs, heard it slam shut. Good. The root cellar was underground, stone-lined, fireproof, because I had a feeling fire was exactly what was coming. I loaded my rifle, my shotgun, my pistol, checked my ammunition. Not enough to fight off 6 men, not if they were determined, but enough to make 'em think twice. The torches got closer. I could see 'em clear now, see the men carrying 'em. Rough-looking types, just like Beatrice had said. Hired guns with hard eyes and harder hearts. And riding in the middle of 'em, staying well back from the front line, was Oswin Fletcher. They stopped about 50 yards from my cabin, formed a semicircle. The torches cast crazy shadows on the snow, made everything look like hell had frozen over and come calling. One of the hired guns stepped forward. big man, scarred face, missing 2 fingers on his left hand. "Silas Brennan," he called out. "We know you got the girl in there. Send her out, and we'll leave peaceful." I opened the door just wide enough to show my rifle barrel. "She ain't coming out," I called back. "And if you boys are smart, you'll turn around and ride back down this mountain before somebody gets hurt. There's 6 of us and 1 of you, old man." "6 targets," I said. "I only need 3 bullets to make this unprofitable for the rest of you." There was silence. I could almost hear 'em calculating odds. They were getting paid to do a job, sure, but was it enough to die for? That's when Oswin rode forward a bit, staying carefully behind his hired muscle. "Mr. Brennan?" His voice was smooth as oil. "Let's be reasonable men about this. Those children are legally mine. I'm simply reclaiming my property." "She ain't property," I shouted back. "Neither is that baby. Not while I'm breathing." "Then perhaps," Oswin said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, "we should do something about your breathing." One of the hired guns threw his torch. It arced through the air like a shooting star, landed on my barn roof. The hay inside caught instantly, flames exploding upward into the night sky. My horses screamed. I ran toward the barn without thinking, forgot about the men with guns, forgot about everything except those animals trapped inside. But I'd only made it 3 steps when a bullet cracked past my head, splintered the doorframe. "Next one won't miss," the scarred man yelled. I stopped, watched my barn burn, watched the horses finally kick their way out through the back wall, running wild-eyed into the snow. At least they were free. But everything else, the hay, the equipment, the tack, 5 years of building, was going up in flames. "Now," Oswin called out, "are you going to be sensible, or does the house burn next?" I stood there in the doorway, rifle in my hands, watching the fire paint the snow orange and red. Beneath my feet, under the floorboards, I could hear Eliza crying softly in the root cellar. "You can burn every building on this mountain," I said. "The answer's still no." Another torch flew through the air. This one was headed straight for my cabin. That second torch never hit my cabin. A rifle shot cracked through the night, and the torch exploded in mid-air, scattered burning embers raining down harmless into the snow. I spun around trying to figure where the shot came from, and that's when I saw 'em, riders pouring out of the tree line from 3 directions. 20 men, maybe more, carrying their own torches and rifles. At the front rode Miguel Santos, the foreman who'd worked for James Morrison before the accident. Behind him was Sarah Chen from the general store, Dr. Harrison, and a whole crowd of townspeople I'd barely spoken to in 5 years. "Drop your weapons!" Miguel shouted at Oswin's hired guns. "Now!" The hired men looked at each other, then at Oswin, calculating new odds. 6 against 1 had been good numbers. 6 against 25 was suicide. Their guns hit the snow. "This is outrageous," Oswin sputtered. "These people have no authority." "We got every authority," Miguel said, riding right up to him. "We're citizens of this territory, and we witnessed you committing arson and attempted murder. Marshal Reeves is going to be real interested in that. You wouldn't dare. Try us." Sarah Chen leveled her rifle at him. "My husband died in one of your accidents, Oswin. I've stayed quiet for 3 years. I ain't staying quiet no more." I stood there in shock, watching my barn burn, watching the town I thought had abandoned me surround Oswin and his thugs like wolves on a wounded elk. Beatrice Hollis rode up beside me. "Told you there were some of us who knew what he really was," she said quietly. "Just took somebody brave enough to stand up first before the rest of us found our courage." By the time Marshal Reeves arrived, Beatrice had sent her son to fetch him. Oswin and his hired guns were tied up in my yard like Christmas packages. The marshal took one look at the burning barn, the armed townspeople, and Oswin's red face, and let out a long sigh. "This just gets better and better," he muttered. It took till dawn to sort everything out. Statements were taken, witnesses recorded, charges filed. Oswin was arrested for arson, attempted murder, and a half-dozen other crimes. His hired guns turned on him faster than rats leaving a sinking ship, confessing to everything he'd paid him to do. By the time the sun rose, Oswin Fletcher was headed to jail in iron shackles. "You got lucky tonight," Marshal Reeves said to me as the wagon carrying Oswin rolled away. "But this ain't over." He'll get a lawyer, make bail, fight this in court, and he's still got those guardianship papers. Then we'll fight him in court too, I said. The marshal looked at me for a long moment. You really want these kids that bad? I thought about Eliza crying in the root cellar, about Samuel's laugh, about the way my empty cabin had started to feel like a home again. Yeah, I said. I really do. After everyone left, after the barn had burned down to smearing embers, I opened the root cellar door. Eliza was sitting on the bottom step, rocking Samuel, singing to him soft. When she saw me, she stopped. Is it over? She whispered. For now. She climbed up, and we stood together in the gray dawn light, looking at what was left of my barn. Just a skeleton of blackened beams and ash. I'm sorry, she said quietly. This is all my fault. If we'd never come here, then I'd still be alone, I interrupted. Living in an empty house, building things for no reason, pretending I was still alive when really I'd been dead inside for 5 years. She looked up at me with that one clear eye. You really mean that? I really mean that. She set Samuel down in his basket, then did something that nearly broke me. She reached out and took my hand, her small scarred fingers wrapping around my rough, calloused ones, and squeezed. I squeezed back. We stood like that for a long minute, not saying nothing, just holding hands and watching the smoke rise from the ruins. And I realized this was what Martha had been trying to tell me all along, what I'd been too grief-struck to understand. A broken heart ain't useless. It's just got more room in it. 2 days later, I got a visitor I wasn't expecting. Chief Running Bear of the Blackfoot Nation rode up to my ranch alone, carrying no weapons, showing he came in peace. I'd met him a few times over the years. We'd always gotten along well enough, respected each other's boundaries. Silas Brennan, he said, dismounting. I heard what happened here, with the children and the fire. News travels fast. Some news travels on the wind. He looked at Eliza, who was peeking out from behind me. Come here, child. She hesitated, then stepped forward. Chief Running Bear studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You have your grandmother's eyes, both of them, even the one that doesn't see. Eliza's mouth fell open. You knew my grandmother? Morning Dove was her name. Blackfoot woman, married a white trader. Your mother was their daughter. He looked at me. Did you know the children have tribal blood? No, I admitted. But what difference does it make? All the difference. Chief Running Bear's weathered face creased into something that might have been a smile. Under treaty law, children with tribal blood can claim tribal jurisdiction, especially in custody matters. I felt something shift in my chest. Meaning? Meaning Oswin Fletcher's guardianship papers. They're white man's law, but these children can choose to be recognized by the tribe, and if they do, their custody falls under our authority, not the territorial courts. And what would your tribe decide? I asked carefully. We'd hold a hearing, ask the children what they want, ask you what you offer, make our judgment based on our traditions, not white man's property laws. He fixed me with a steady gaze. In our nation, children belong to those who protect them and care for them, not to those who share blood but offer no love. Eliza grabbed my hand again, squeezed it tight. Is that what you want? I asked her quietly. To claim your tribal heritage? If it means staying with you, she said, then yes. Chief Running Bear nodded. Then it's settled. I'll file the papers with the territorial judge. In 3 days, we'll hold a traditional hearing. If you pass our test, Silas Brennan, the children are yours. No white man's court can overturn it. What kind of test? The trial of 3 questions. His eyes gleamed. We'll see what kind of man you really are. After he left, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real hope. That feeling lasted exactly 4 hours. That's when Beatrice came riding up again, this time at full gallop, her horse covered in sweat despite the cold. Silas! She shouted before she'd even dismounted. Oswin made bail. Judge let him out this morning. How? The charges against him. He's got friends in high places, called in favors. And Silas, she was breathing hard. He knows about the tribal hearing, and I heard him talking to his lawyer. They're gonna fight it. Gonna claim the children aren't really tribal, that there's no documentation, that it's all a trick to get around white man's law. Can they do that? I don't know, but that ain't the worst of it. She looked scared now, really scared. He hired more men, different ones this time, from down south, the kind that don't ask questions and don't leave witnesses. And I heard him say, she paused, glancing at Eliza. I heard him say if he can't have the children legal, he'll make sure nobody can have 'em at all. The hope that had been building in my chest turned cold and heavy. How long do I have? 3 days till the tribal hearing. But Silas, her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't think he's going to wait that long. I think he's coming tonight. I looked at my burned barn, at my ranch that had become a battlefield, at Eliza standing in the doorway holding her baby brother. Then tonight, I said, we'll be ready. But as I said it, I couldn't help wondering, how do you get ready to fight a man who's got nothing left to lose and everything to gain by your death? I spent that afternoon preparing for a siege, moved Eliza and Samuel to the strongest part of the cabin, the corner where two stone walls met, least likely to catch fire. Stacked supplies there, water, food, blankets, ammunition, positioned my rifles at windows facing different directions. If Oswin's men came, I'd make 'em pay for every inch. Eliza watched me work, her one good eye tracking every movement. You're scared, she said quietly. I'm careful. There's a difference. You think he's gonna come tonight, don't you? I didn't answer right away, just kept loading cartridges into the rifle. Mr. Brennan. Silas, I said. You can call me Silas. She blinked. Really? We're past formalities, I reckon. I looked at her. And if something happens to me tonight, I want the last time you said my name to be personal. Her eyes filled with tears. Don't talk like that. Eliza, listen to me. I set down the rifle and knelt so we were eye to eye. If things go bad, if they get past me and into this cabin, you take Samuel and you run. There's a trail out the back, through the pine grove. It'll take you to Chief Running Bear's territory. You follow that trail. You don't look back. You don't stop. You understand? I ain't leaving you. You will if I tell you to. No. Her voice was firm now, stubborn. You didn't leave me when things got hard. I ain't leaving you neither. I looked at this little girl, 8 years old, half blind, clutching her baby brother, standing there telling me she wouldn't abandon me. And I realized something. She'd already saved me once. When she came walking through that blizzard, she'd saved me from a life of being dead inside. Maybe it was time I trusted her to help save us both. All right, I said. We stand together. She smiled, small, scared, but real. Then she reached out and hugged me, quick and fierce, before pulling back like she was embarrassed. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. I opened my mouth to answer, but that's when I heard horses, multiple horses, coming up the trail. Here we go, I thought, reaching for my rifle. But then I heard something unexpected, a voice calling out, Brennan, don't shoot, it's Miguel. I went to the door cautiously, rifle ready. Sure enough, Miguel Santos was riding up, and behind him, I counted 12 more riders, men from the logging crews, men I barely knew. What's going on? I called out. Miguel dismounted. We heard Oswin made bail, heard he's planning something tonight, so we came to help. Help how? However you need. He gestured to the men behind him. Every one of us worked for James Morrison. Every one of us knows Oswin killed him. We should have said something 6 months ago. We didn't. We were cowards. But we ain't being cowards no more. One by one, the men dismounted. I recognized some of them. Juan, the saw operator. Big Tom, who could carry a full log on his shoulders. Young Willie, who couldn't have been more than 19. We'll stand watch, Miguel said, in shifts. If Oswin's men come, they'll have to go through all of us. I didn't know what to say. For 5 years I'd lived alone, kept everyone at arm's length, convinced myself I didn't need nobody. And here were a dozen men ready to risk their lives for children they barely knew, just because it was the right thing to do. I can't pay you, I said finally. Didn't ask for pay, Miguel replied. Some things you do because they need doing. This is one of them." As the men set up a perimeter around my cabin, another rider came up the trail. This one I recognized immediately. Dr. Harrison carrying his medical bag. "Figured if there's gonna be trouble," he said, climbing down from his horse, "you might need someone who knows how to patch up bullet holes." "Doc, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His face was grim. I stayed silent when I saw bruises on these children, told myself it wasn't my business. Well, I'm making it my business now. Before sunset, 4 more people arrived. Sarah Chen brought food, enough to feed everyone for 3 days. Beatrice Hollis came with blankets and medical supplies. Even old Father Murphy from the Catholic Church rode up, said he'd come to bear witness and pray for souls, though I noticed he'd brought his shotgun along with his Bible. By nightfall, I wasn't alone anymore. I had 15 people camped around my cabin, keeping watch, ready to fight. Eliza stood at the window, looking out at all of them. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why are they doing this?" "Because you reminded them what matters," I said. Sometimes folks forget. They get scared, get selfish, convince themselves that staying safe is more important than doing right. But then something happens, something like a little girl walking through a blizzard to save her baby brother, and it reminds them who they used to be, who they're supposed to be. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you think Uncle Oswin will still come, with all these people here?" "I don't know. Man like Oswin, when he's cornered, he gets dangerous." As if summoning him with words, we heard it, a sound drifting up from the valley below. Church bells, ringing at the wrong time of day, ringing in a pattern that wasn't right. Miguel came to the door. "That's a signal," he said. "Someone's raising an alarm in town." We all stood there listening to those bells echo through the mountains, each clang sending a chill down my spine. Then a rider came tearing up the trail, one of Beatrice's sons, his horse covered in foam from being pushed too hard. "Fire!" he shouted. "There's a fire in town. The courthouse. It's burning." My blood went cold. The courthouse, that's where they keep all the legal records, including the Morrison estate files, Miguel said quietly. "The documents proving the children's inheritance, the evidence of Oswin's embezzlement." "He's destroying the evidence," Dr. Harrison said. But I was thinking something else, something worse. "It's a diversion," I said. "He sets a fire in town, draws the marshal and half the men away to fight it. Then he comes here while we're undermanned." Miguel understood immediately. "Split our forces. Make us choose between saving the town and protecting the children." "And while the courthouse burns," I continued, "all the legal proof of his crimes burns with it." Beatrice's son was breathing hard. "Marshal's calling for every able-bodied man to help fight the fire. Says the whole town could go up if it spreads to the lumber mill." Miguel looked at me. "If we go help fight that fire, we leave the children exposed," I finished. "But if we don't go, the town burns. People could die." We stood there in terrible silence, each of us knowing we were facing an impossible choice. Save the town or save the children. Oswin had engineered it so we couldn't do both. "I'll stay," I said. "The rest of you go. Help with the fire. Silas, you can't defend this place alone." "I can try." "No." Miguel's voice was firm. "We split up. Half go fight the fire, half stay here. We don't abandon either." It was the best compromise we could make, but it still left us vulnerable. 6 men to guard the cabin, 7 to fight the fire. Not enough for either task, but the best we could do. As Miguel picked men for each group, I felt time slowing down, felt the weight of what was coming settle on my shoulders. This was it. Tonight, one way or another, this ended. The men riding to town were mounting up when we saw it, way down in the valley, where the trail from town met the mountain road. Lights. Not torches this time, but lanterns. Moving slow and steady, like a funeral procession. Coming up the mountain. Coming for us. "They're here," I said quietly. Miguel looked at the riders coming up the trail, then at the smoke rising from town, then at me. "We can still send everyone," he said. "Make a stand here with all 15 men. And let the town burn? Let more innocent people die?" I shook my head. "No, we do it like we planned. You take your men to town. We'll hold here till you get back. And if you can't hold? I looked at Eliza standing in the doorway, holding Samuel, trusting me to keep her safe. Then I'll go down fightin', I said, and I'll take as many of 'em with me as I can. Miguel gripped my shoulder. God be with you, my friend. And with you. I watched half our defenders ride toward town, toward the fire, leaving me with 5 men to face whatever was coming up that mountain trail. Inside the cabin, Eliza was singing softly to Samuel, the same song she'd been singing in the root cellar that first night. A lullaby, a prayer. I checked my rifle one more time, made sure every round was loaded. The lights kept coming, getting closer with every heartbeat. And somewhere in the distance, those church bells kept ringing, calling good men to fight a fire, while evil men came calling on the innocent. Silas? Eliza's voice was small. Yeah? Whatever happens, thank you for giving us a home, even if it was only for a little while. It ain't over yet, I said. But as I said it, watching those lanterns climb the mountain, I couldn't help but wonder if I was lying to her, or to myself. The lantern stopped 50 yards from my cabin. 10 men on horseback, maybe more in the shadows, and standing at the front, bold as brass despite his bail conditions, was Oswin Fletcher. Brennan, his voice carried through the cold night air. I'm giving you one last chance. Send out the children, and I'll let you and your friends live. I stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand. Behind me, my 5 defenders took positions at the windows. You already tried burning me out once, Oswin. Didn't work then, won't work now. That was a warning. He gestured to the smoke rising from town. This time I'm not playing games. You've got 5 minutes to send them out, or we're coming in. Then come, I shouted back. But I guarantee some of you ain't riding back down this mountain. I saw his men shifting in their saddles, nervous. They'd been hired for a job, but facing a fortified position against determined defenders, that wasn't what they'd signed up for. Oswin saw it too, his face twisted with rage. You're all fools, he screamed at his men. There's only 6 of them. We outnumber them 2 to 1, and when we're done, you'll be paid double what I promised. Money talks. The hired guns steadied, hands moving to their weapons. This was it, the moment where everything would be decided by bullets and blood. But then I heard something. The sound of many horses, coming fast from a different direction. Not from town, from the north. Everyone turned to look. Out of the darkness rode Chief Running Bear, and behind him at least 30 Blackfoot warriors. They spread out in a line between Oswin's men and my cabin, creating a wall of horseflesh and humanity. What is the meaning of this? Oswin sputtered. Chief Running Bear sat tall in his saddle, his weathered face impassive. These children have claimed tribal protection. Under the Treaty of 1855, anyone with Blackfoot blood who requests sanctuary has the right to tribal jurisdiction. That treaty doesn't apply here. This is territorial land. The children are on this land by choice. They have requested recognition by the tribe. That makes them tribal members, subject to our laws, not yours. The chief's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of centuries. Your guardianship papers mean nothing to us. This is absurd. Marshal Reeves is bound by federal treaty law, Chief Running Bear interrupted. As are you. If you attempt to take these children by force, you commit an act of aggression against the Blackfoot Nation. That is a federal crime. I watched Oswin's face cycle through rage, calculation, desperation. His whole plan was collapsing around him. The courthouse fire had destroyed evidence, sure, but now none of it mattered. Tribal law didn't care about white man's documents. You can't do this, Oswin said, but his voice had lost its certainty. I have rights, legal rights. You have no rights here. Chief Running Bear looked past him, directly at me. Silas Brennan, do you accept responsibility for these children under tribal custom? Every eye turned to me. This was it. The moment of no return. If I said yes, I'd be bound by tribal law, subject to their judgment, but I'd also be protected by it, and so would Eliza and Samuel. I accept, I said. Chief Running Bear nodded. Then it is done. Tomorrow at dawn, you will come to our village. The council will hold the trial of 3 questions. If you answer true, the children are yours forever. If you answer false, he didn't finish, but we all knew what it meant. And if he fails? Oswin asked eagerly. If he can't answer your questions, do the children come back to me? No, the chief said simply. They become wards of the tribe. You will never see them again either way. Oswin's face went purple. This is illegal. I'll appeal to the territorial governor. You'll leave. Chief Running Bear's voice hardened. Now. Before I decide that your presence here constitutes a threat to tribal members. The Blackfoot warriors raised their rifles as one. Oswin looked at his hired guns, saw them backing away, saw his money and influence meaning nothing in the face of 30 armed warriors and federal treaty law. This isn't over, Brennan, he spat. Even if you pass their test, I'll find a way. I always find a way. Then you'll do it from a jail cell, said a new voice. We all turned. Marshal Reeves was riding up from town, and he wasn't alone. He had Beatrice Hollis with him, and she was carrying a metal lockbox, the kind used to store important documents. Before your men set that fire, the marshal said, Beatrice here broke into the courthouse and grabbed the most important files, including the Morrison estate records, including evidence of your embezzlement, including a witness statement from Miguel Santos, describing how he saw you sabotage James Morrison's logging equipment. Oswin went pale. Oswin Fletcher, Marshal Reeves continued, you're under arrest, again, and this time there ain't no judge in the territory who'll grant you bail. I watched them put Oswin in chains, watched him scream and threaten and finally break down sobbing as they led him away. All that power, all that influence, gone in a moment. When they were gone, when the hired guns had scattered and Oswin was headed back to jail, Chief Running Bear approached me. The children are safe tonight, he said, but tomorrow you face the council. The 3 questions are not easy, Silas Brennan. They are designed to reveal what is in a man's heart. Many have failed them. What happens if I fail? The children go to the tribe. They will be raised in our ways, given Blackfoot names, taught our traditions. They will have a good life. He paused. But they will not have you. I looked back at the cabin where Eliza stood in the doorway holding Samuel, watching us. Then I better not fail, I said. Come at dawn. Alone. The children stay here with your friends until the trial is complete. He started to ride away, then stopped. Silas Brennan. The questions we ask are not about strength or wisdom or wealth. They are about truth. Remember that. After everyone left, the warriors, the marshal, the defenders who'd stood with me, the cabin fell silent. Eliza and I sat by the fire, neither of us speaking for a long time. Finally, she asked, What are the 3 questions? I don't know. What if you can't answer them? Then you'll go live with Chief Running Bear's people. They're good people, Eliza. They'll take care of you. But I want to stay with you, she whispered. I know. I put my arm around her shoulders. And I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. She leaned against me, and we sat there watching the fire, both of us knowing that come dawn, everything would change. One way or another. Dawn came cold and clear. I rode to the Blackfoot village alone, like Chief Running Bear had instructed. The trail wound through pine forests still heavy with snow, and as I climbed higher, I could see smoke rising from the town below. The courthouse still smearing from last night's fire. Oswin had tried to burn the truth. Instead, he'd only revealed himself. The village was nestled in a valley protected by rock walls on 3 sides. Teepees formed a circle around a central fire, and as I rode in, I saw the entire tribe gathered. Elders, warriors, women, children. All of them there to witness the trial of 3 questions. Chief Running Bear stood by the fire, flanked by 6 other elders. Their faces were weathered as old leather, eyes sharp as broken glass. Silas Brennan, the chief said, you come seeking to adopt children of tribal blood. Our law requires you answer 3 questions with complete truth. Not clever words, not right answers, truth from your heart. We will know the difference. I dismounted, walked to the fire. The heat felt good against my face, but it was nothing compared to the heat of all those eyes on me. I'm ready, I said. An elderly woman stepped forward, the oldest person I'd ever seen, her face a map of wrinkles, her eyes still bright as a girl's. "First question," she said. "You lost a wife and son. You grieve them still. Why do you seek to replace them with children who are not yours?" The question hit me like a fist. I'd expected legal questions, practical questions. Not this. I thought about lying, saying something noble about duty or compassion, but Chief Running Bear had said truth, so I gave it to him. "I don't seek to replace them," I said slowly. "Martha and James can't be replaced. But grief is a canyon, ma'am. You can stand on one side alone, or you can build a bridge and cross it. Eliza and Samuel, they're not replacing what I lost. They're the bridge that lets me keep living without forgetting the dead." The old woman nodded. "You speak true. The heart knows the difference between filling a hole and healing a wound." A middle-aged man stepped forward next. "Second question. You are a man of property and independence. Children require sacrifice, of freedom, of resources, of self. Your barn burned, your cattle scattered. Why give what little remains to children who may never call you father?" This one was easier. I'd already learned this lesson. "I spent 5 years building a ranch for nobody but myself," I said. "Bigger barns, more cattle, more land. But every night I came home to an empty house. Property without purpose is just things. Eliza and Samuel give me a reason to rebuild. Not for me, for them." "And if they grow up and leave?" I shrugged. "That's how it's supposed to be. Children aren't meant to stay. They're meant to become strong enough to fly." The man smiled slightly. "You understand parenthood, then. It is the art of holding tight while letting go." Finally, Chief Running Bear himself stepped forward. "Third question. The hardest." His eyes bored into mine. "You took these children into your home. You risked everything. Why? Do not tell me duty. Do not tell me honor. Tell me the deepest truth, even if it shames you." This was it. The question that would decide everything. I could feel the whole tribe leaning in, waiting. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. And I realized that if I couldn't be honest here, I didn't deserve those children anyway. "Because I failed my own son," I said, my voice cracking. "He got sick. Winter fever, same as Samuel. I rode for medicine, same as I did for Samuel. But I was too late. James died while I was gone. And Martha, she looked at me with these eyes that forgave me, which was worse than blame. She forgave me, but I never forgave myself. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't wipe them away. When I saw Eliza carrying Samuel through that blizzard, when I saw his blue lips, I saw my second chance, my redemption. I'm not taking them in out of kindness, Chief. I'm taking them in out of desperation, because if I can save them, maybe I can live with what I couldn't save before." The silence that followed was absolute. I just confessed my deepest shame in front of 100 people, admitted I was broken, selfish, desperate. Every instinct I had as a man told me I'd just failed the test. Then Chief Running Bear did something unexpected. He smiled. "You have answered the 3 questions," he said, "and you have done what no man seeking adoption has ever done before." I braced myself for rejection. "You told the truth, the full truth. Most men give us noble lies. They want children out of love, out of duty, out of strength. You are the first to admit you do it out of brokenness." He placed his hand on my shoulder. "And that, Silas Brennan, is the only honest reason to become a father." The old woman stepped forward again. "All parents are broken people trying to raise children better than they were raised. You admit your cracks. Others hide them. We trust a cracked pot that admits it leaks more than a perfect pot that hides its holes." "The council has decided," Chief Running Bear announced to the gathered tribe. "The children are yours. May their healing and yours walk the same path." A cheer went up from the tribe, whoops and hollers that echoed off the canyon walls. I stood there in shock, barely believing what I'd heard. I'd passed. They brought Eliza and Samuel then. They'd been kept in a nearby lodge, waiting for the verdict. When Eliza saw me, saw my tears, saw the smiles on the elders' faces, she understood. She ran to me, Samuel in her arms, and threw herself against my chest. "Papa," she said, the first time she'd called me that. I wrapped my arms around both of them. Yes, daughter. Papa. The tribe began preparing a feast, celebrating the adoption in the traditional way. But as the women built up the fire and the men brought out drums, a rider came tearing into the village. It was one of Beatrice's sons, his face pale with fear. Mr. Brennan, he gasped. You need to come quick. It's Oswin. He escaped. My blood went cold. What? Last night, in the jail. Someone helped him, left the cell door open, gave him a horse. Marshal's forming a posse, but... The boy hesitated. He was heard saying he's coming for the children. Said if he can't have 'em legal, nobody will. Chief Running Bear's face hardened. How long has he been free? Since midnight. He's got 12 hours head start. I looked down at Eliza, saw the fear flood back into her one good eye. We'd won the legal battle, passed the tribal test, done everything right, and Oswin Fletcher was still out there, somewhere in the mountains, coming to finish what he'd started. Take the children to the lodge, I told Chief Running Bear. Keep 'em safe. Where are you going? I checked my rifle, made sure my ammunition was full. To end this, I said, one way or another. We found Oswin Fletcher 3 miles from the village, his horse lame, him on foot trudging through snow that came up to his knees. He wasn't running toward the children, he was running away. Marshal Reeves and I rode up on him together, along with Chief Running Bear and a dozen warriors. When Oswin saw us, he collapsed in the snow, not even trying to fight anymore. It's over, Oswin, the marshal said. But Oswin just laughed. A broken, hollow sound. Over. It was over the moment James Morrison married that Blackfoot woman, over when they had children with tribal blood. I worked for 20 years building that business, and he was going to leave half of it to half-breed children. The slur made Chief Running Bear's hand move to his knife, but I held up my hand. Let him talk, I said. Let him tell us all of it. And Oswin did. Like a dam breaking, the whole ugly truth poured out. How he'd sabotaged the logging equipment, how he'd planned for James's widow to die too, slipped something into her medicine that made the childbirth go wrong, how he'd been slowly poisoning the children's food, hoping they'd sicken and die before anyone noticed. They were supposed to die, he sobbed. Quiet, like accidents. Nobody would have known. The business would have been mine, all mine, but that girl... He looked up at me with wild eyes. That girl wouldn't die. Kept surviving, kept protecting her brother. I had to get rid of them. Had to. He was confessing to 3 murders and 2 attempted murders, right there in the snow, in front of a dozen witnesses. Marshal Reeves was writing it all down. Why? I asked. Why not just buy them out, pay for their shares? Because they didn't deserve it, Oswin screamed. I built that business, my money, my connections. James just had the name and the know-how. Why should his mongrel children inherit what I built? The word mongrel hung in the cold air. Chief Running Bear dismounted slowly, walked to where Oswin knelt in the snow. The old chief looked down at this broken, hateful man, and I saw something in his eyes I didn't expect. Pity. You murdered for money, Chief Running Bear said quietly. Destroyed lives for property. And now you have neither. He looked at me. What would you have us do with him, Silas Brennan? Under tribal law, you have the right to demand justice, his life for the lives he took. Everyone went silent. This was it, the moment where I could demand Oswin's death, and no white man's law could stop it. Tribal justice on tribal land. I thought about Martha, about my son James, about Eliza's parents, dead because of this man's greed. Then I thought about Eliza and Samuel, back in the village, waiting to see what kind of man I was, what kind of father. No, I said. Marshal Reeves looked surprised. Silas. He'll face white man's justice. A trial, a jury, a judge, everything legal and proper. I looked at Oswin. Because I won't let him turn me into what he is. I won't let him make my children watch their father become a killer. Chief Running Bear nodded slowly. You choose mercy over revenge. That is the mark of true strength. It ain't mercy, I said. It's practicality. Every minute I spend hating him is a minute I don't spend loving them. He's had enough of our days. He doesn't get any more. 3 months later, spring came to Montana. Oswin Fletcher was convicted on all counts: 3 murders, 2 attempted murders, arson, fraud, embezzlement. The judge sentenced him to hang, but I didn't go watch. Had better things to do, like teaching Eliza how to ride a horse, like watching Samuel take his first steps, like rebuilding my barn with help from Miguel and the logging crew. The legal adoption was finalized on a warm April morning. Judge Morrison himself came up to the ranch to deliver the papers, smiled when he saw the new names, Eliza Martha Brennan and Samuel James Brennan. "You honored your dead by naming the living after them," he said. "That's a good thing." "Chief Running Bear's idea," I admitted. Said in his tradition, you honor ancestors by carrying their names forward. That evening, I took the children up to the hilltop where Martha and my son were buried. We'd added 2 more markers, for James and Elizabeth Morrison. "I want you to know your first parents," I told Eliza. "They loved you, and they'd be proud of who you're becoming." "Do you think they mind?" she asked, touching her mother's grave marker. "That we call you Papa now?" I looked at the 4 graves, thought about how much death it had taken to teach me how to live again. "I think they sent you to me," I said. "I think your mama and my Martha worked something out up there. Maybe our family was always supposed to be bigger than we thought." Samuel, walking now, nearly a year old, toddled over and put his chubby hand on my boot. I picked him up, and he laughed, reaching for my beard. "Come on," I said. "Let's go home." As we walked down the hill toward the cabin, where smoke curled from the chimney and the new barn stood strong against the sky, Eliza slipped her hand into mine. "Papa," she said, "do you still miss them? Your first family?" "Every day," I admitted. "But missing them and loving you ain't opposite things, daughter. A heart can hold both." She squeezed my hand. "Good. 'Cause I miss my first mama and papa too, but I love you just as much." From the cabin, I could see folks gathering: Miguel and his family, Beatrice, Dr. Harrison, Sarah Chen. We'd started having Sunday dinners together, this odd collection of people who'd found courage in each other. Chief Running Bear was there too, had become a regular visitor, said he liked seeing how his adopted grandson Samuel was growing up in both worlds, white and Blackfoot. "You know what the tribe calls you?" he told me last week. "They call you Broken Shield, the man who admits his cracks and protects others anyway." I'd liked that name. Felt true. As we reached the cabin, Eliza looked up at me one more time. "Are you happy, Papa? Really happy?" I looked at her, this one-eyed girl who'd walked through a blizzard to save her brother. Looked at Samuel, giggling in my arms. Looked at the community gathered around my table, celebrating life instead of hoarding it. "Yeah, daughter," I said. "I really am." That night, after everyone left and the children were asleep, I stood on my porch looking at the stars. The mountains rose dark against the sky, and somewhere out there, spring was melting the last of winter's snow. I thought about Oswin, sitting in a jail cell, waiting for a rope. Thought about how close I'd come to letting his hatred poison my second chance at family. But I'd chosen different. Chosen to build instead of destroy. Chosen to love instead of hate. Chosen to be the kind of father my children deserved, not the kind of man my enemy wanted me to become. And that, I figured, was the best revenge of all. Inside, I heard Eliza singing Samuel to sleep, the same lullaby she'd been singing that first night when I found them half frozen in my barn. But this time, her voice wasn't scared. It was home. I'm an old man now. Eliza's got 3 children of her own, and Samuel runs this ranch better than I ever did. This all happened more than 40 years ago, but I remember it like yesterday. Every detail, every choice, every moment, I almost got it wrong. Folks who hear this story sometimes ask me if I regret it. Fighting Oswin, burning my barn, risking everything for 2 children I'd just met. And I tell them the same thing every time. Regret is for time wasted. I didn't waste a single moment. See, the frontier teaches you something real fast. You can build the biggest ranch, the finest herd, the most impressive property in 3 counties. But if you do it alone, you've built nothing, just a museum for one. Family isn't about blood. It's about who you'd walk through a blizzard for, who you'd let your barn burn for, who you'd stand in front of hired guns for. That's family. Martha used to say, "Silas, God breaks our hearts so he can fit more love inside." I didn't understand that for a long time. Thought a broken heart was just Broken, empty, useless. But she was right. My heart broke when I lost her and James. And that crack. That's where Eliza and Samuel fit. Not to replace what I lost, but to prove that broken things can still hold something precious. If you're carrying some weight right now, loss, grief, failure, regret, I want you to know that weight can be a foundation. Build something on it. Don't let it bury you. And if you've got people in your life who need protecting, protect them. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just do it. Because dignity matters, justice matters, and family, chosen or born, matters most of all. If this story touched something in you, I'd be grateful to know where you're listening from. And I hope, wherever you are, you've got someone worth walking through a blizzard for. Until next time, may your heart be broken enough to hold more love, and your courage be strong enough to protect what matters. This is Silas Brennan, and that's how I became a father twice.